Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talk Kelly. Woo! Tonight we're going to have a very special guest all the way from Russia. He flew several thousand miles to be with us tonight to share with us his theory of cognitive development. So please let's give a warm hand for Lev Vygotsky.
Good evening, good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. But wait, aren't we going to have the signature move? You know.
Like this?
Yeah.
No, you must have that confused with the elevation.
Oh, okay. So it's a different talk show.
Yes.
Okay. So
We have many talk shows in America.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So tell me, Lev, who is this Vygotsky person?
Well, as you have mentioned in your speech of introduction for me a while ago, I came from Russia, and I'm Jewish.
From a Jewish family. Besides your interest in education, what else do you consider yourself to be in love with?
I really like combining art and education. As a matter of fact, I really wanted to go to college and study philosophy, but I was not given the chance because I'm a Jewish. But to continue my love for education, I went to studying things about medicine instead.
Oh, wow, you've really accomplished a lot for how young you are. You're very young. What, 37?
So, if you put it that way, yes, but not at all.
Oh. Well, what do you mean?
To tell you honestly, Kelly, my work was highly influenced by Marxism. In Russia, during that time, Marxism was a way of revolution. When we talk about revolution, the government hated that. I have never seen any government who liked revolution. Well, this revolutionary idea made my work in danger.
Whoa, in danger? What do you mean by that?
In danger because my works were banned.
Ah, banned? I'm sorry to hear that.
That's all right, Kelly. I actually think that it was destined to be like that, so I kind of accepted it.
Oh, Marxism. You said your work was influenced by Marxism? Tell me more about that. I'm not familiar. How did it influence your educational standpoint?
To put it in a more simple explanation, Kelly, Marxism is the idea that the essence of man is not inherent in each single individual. Rather, it is more of a social relationship. In my country, a lot of hostility has happened. Majority of these conflicts arise from the type of economic and political system. Now, this political belief has a great impact and influence on how I cluster my principle in education. Now, to connect this thought to my principle of education, I noticed that children learn a lot more when they are given a chance to learn new things from a social perspective.
I actually read some of your research, and I do agree. But let me tell you this. I really like the idea about how you approach education. Tell me more about the ZPD difference.
I'm glad that you brought that up. ZPD, the big word. ZPD is the zone of proximal development. It is actually the distance between the actual development and the level of potential. Allow me to illustrate.
Audience, pay attention.
The zone of proximal development is defined as the distance between a learner's ability to solve a problem independently and the learner's potential level of comprehension when given guidance or in collaboration with more knowledgeable others. Learning occurs in this zone. Let's say a child wants to learn how to bake cookies. Independently, he is unable to figure out how to do the task. He interacts with a more knowledgeable other, such as a parent, and learns the basics of baking cookies. He can also interact with his teacher and discover that basic recipes can be adapted by adding other ingredients. He can then interact with a peer and discover that cookies can also be baked from prepackaged ingredients. Consulting with an electronic tutor like the internet reveals that box cookie mixes can also be adapted by adding ingredients. Through a series of social interactions, the child has learned to internalize concepts related to the basics of baking cookies, and that the basic procedure can be modified with successful results.
Wow! Mind-blowing. Jeez. Now, for the sake of our listeners who haven't read much of your research, can you elaborate more on this idea of scaffolding?
Scaffolding, as the word implies, means that you present newer things to children at a level that they can understand. We can call this independent tab. This independent tab is anything that the child can do all by himself without the guidance of an adult. Scaffolding comes in when we teach the child newer concept towards learning something new. The idea is that if you want a child to learn what you want to teach him, you should present your ideas into tiny chunks. Teach the child step by step. Guide the child from point A to point B. Scaffolding is the gradual release of tasks. It is an idea that is being built upon the child's current level towards mastering a skill or learning something new.
Ah, interesting. So what you're saying is if I want to teach my 5-year-old child about blending words, first I have to teach him how to sound out individual words. And before I can teach my child to read words, my child has to learn how to blend the words. Are my examples correct?
Yes, Kelly. For emergent literacy, this idea of ZPT can actually help them achieve their maximum potential. But there's also one more thing that I'd like to point out.
Oh, please, go ahead.
My theory of cognitive development greatly lies on social interaction. I'd like to point out that language is the key towards achieving this. When a child talks to an MKO or more knowledgeable others in order to learn something new, for example, he uses language to communicate his ideas to the child. Vice versa, the child uses language to get what the ideas are all about. In essence, Kelly, language is the psychological tool and plays a vital role in the development. Without this tool, no learning will take place.
Okay, well, that's actually my next question, but you already answered it. Tell me about how your theory is going to help teachers whose students are just beginning to be in this phase of emergent literacy.
The idea of cognitive development will help your child in many ways. For example, instruction and environment. For example, Kelly, in a classroom setting, your classroom should be more inviting towards socialization. Interaction among peers and other resources or sources should be available. And I'm not only talking about the people in your classroom. The idea of MKO, or the more knowledgeable others, involves books, technology, and other devices that can help scaffold the task and promote social talk among the students. Also, instruction should always provide a way to talk among themselves. Maybe you can group kids with, partners, 2 or 3 maybe, a triad or whatever you want that. Now this will actually help, especially if your child or if some of your students are coming from a different background. A child may be shy at first to talk in groups, but if you partner that child to 1 or 2 or more, then you will see a significant change in how the child interacts and learns from his or her peers.
Fascinating ideas. Well, okay, so instruction and learning environment that promotes social interaction, using language as a primary tool for learning, and scaffolding as tasks for zone of proximal learning. Wow, these are just fascinating ideas. Don't you think, audience?
It is fascinating.
Wow. Well, when you were explaining these things, I was actually thinking of a lot of things myself, like class songs and read-alouds and book talks and just socializing and talking in general that happens in my classroom. these are great implications of this theory for my young learners.
And always remember, Kelly, and also for our audience, as I always say it in my country, beware of the zone.
I hope that our viewers out there learned a lot today from Mr. Lev Vygotsky, fresh from Russia. Fresh from Russia. I'm glad that you were on our tour today. Please come back anytime.
My pleasure, and thank you all for having me over. Again, Kelly and the audience, teachers more especially, for emergent literacy. Beware of the zone. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Next we have PJ.